This is the question that came in yesterday, but because this chap is going on holidays quite shortly, I bumped it up the list so that we could answer it. I'm going on holidays soon. For the last week or so, I've been having imaginary confrontations with people at the airport or on the plane to somehow prepare myself for whatever setback I can imagine. Is this normal and how do I deal with it? Well, yes, it is normal. This is called worst case scenario thinking, and in psychology, we call it catastrophizing. This cognitive distortion basically leads you to overestimate and exaggerate the probability of terrible things happening. Like all of your worst fears and nightmares are suddenly on the table as possible outcomes at all times. And this kind of thinking results in higher levels of anxiety, which then compromise your day to day behavior and can even lead to health problems because of, elevated levels of cortisol and stress. Pretend for a moment that you're a hunter gatherer 100,000 years ago and you're out in a forest and you're doing your thing, you're hunting and you're gathering, and you come across a large bush of berries. Amazing. So you start gathering, and suddenly you hear a noise. Now you're not quite sure what this noise is, so you have to imagine it. You could, of course, imagine that it's just a bird and dismiss it and continue gathering, or, which is more likely, you could imagine that it's an apex predator and run like hell. Now, if you did imagine that it was a bird and you imagined wrong, then you're going to die. That apex predator is going to eat you. If you imagined that it was a predator and you did run and you got that wrong, then you've lost nothing. You're still safe. So, imagining worst case scenario is a mechanism that our brain uses to keep us safe. Let's say, for example, your boss calls you in to the office and says to you, "Come to my office, please." You don't immediately think, "Yay, I'm getting a raise." Instead, you immediately think, "Oh, good Lord, what have I done? What do they want? Am I getting in trouble? Am I being fired?" All of these things race through your brain. So it's normal to have negative thoughts, no matter how extreme they might seem. It's part of our makeup to look for problems. The problem is, of course, that it's not so much as that we have negative thoughts, rather, it's the issues that arise when these thoughts become debilitating, or we believe that these thoughts are true, and then they turn into a vicious cycle of worst case scenarios that become confirmation biases. I mean, there are a couple of things that you can do. What I normally find work in these situations, some therapists will tell you to write down your thoughts. This is an option, of course, but it's one, in my opinion, that can sometimes lead to you obsessing even more about them. So rather, do this instead. Remember that worst case scenario thinking is your brain trying to keep you safe. So if you have an issue like this chap here on the flight, let's say you can feel the catastrophizing starting. So you just say to your brain, "Thank you. I know you're trying to cover all bases in case we need to deal with anything negative on the trip. I've got it under control, and I'll let you know if we need to consider anything else." That's basically telling your brain you can switch off. Or you can simply switch off the thoughts as they arise by using a technique called "What is my next thought going to be?" So you say to yourself consciously, sit in an area that's quiet and calm, and think to yourself consciously, "What is my next thought going to be?" And when you say this and you concentrate, your brain looks for that next thought. And guess what? It's very rarely that the next thought comes immediately. When it does, you can take it, you can look at it, you can say, "Okay, interesting. Now, what is my next thought going to be?" And you keep doing this until you feel calmer. Because essentially, when you're consciously looking for that next thought, it very rarely comes. The inventor of this technique, Echo, likened it to a cat sitting at a mouse hole. The cat was very consciously waiting for the mouse to come out of the mouse hole. Well, the mouse never came. So try it. It works. Talk to you later. And enjoy your holiday.